Hi, welcome to Maritime Matters. My name is Captain Morgan DeWicki. It is a pleasure to have here with me today Captain Janet Urbanowicz. She is a licensed captain who has been working in the industry for 6 years now, primarily doing deliveries. And she's a student of ours, and we're so excited to have her because we love to highlight women in maritime. So we'll go ahead and get started. Captain Janet, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, first of all. My background is actually in healthcare. I became a nurse pretty much out of high school, and I did some clinical years, and then I moved into management and then administration, and I had just a wonderful 28-year career in the healthcare industry, but knew that I always wanted to be on the water and a captain. I had my boats, along the way, but really wanted to apply myself in that direction as a early retirement kind of activity, if you will. And so got the license and met some great guys who were willing to take me on and mentor me. And 6 years later, I'm pretty busy.
So not really a retirement, but having fun at least.
I never wanted to retire completely. I'm not one to sit around. I get bored very easily. So I started a little company called Nautical Freedom to do all of my recreational boating through to make it legitimate. And most recently, I established Windrun, which is hopefully going to be the commercial side of the business, to do some work in the windmill industry. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. I know Orsted is looking to give primarily minority and women small business-owned companies some grant money. Those grant requirements have not come out yet, so I don't know what that looks like, but figured I'd be ready for when they were ready. And if that doesn't work out, I'll just dissolve it and it'll be done. But yeah, it's been a fun bunch of years. I've learned so much. Boating is about experience.
Right.
So you can learn a lot in the classroom, but until you apply it and work with it every day, that's really the teacher.
So what's your journey been like over the past 6 years since you got your license? Where did you start out, and where are you working today in the industry?
So when I first got the license, I was just looking online to see what my opportunities might be. The first year I worked for free with a guy named Captain Harry, because he was just, literally showing me the ropes, if you will.
Yep.
And so I was happy to do that, still working in healthcare, so money was not, the real goal there. And at the same time, I found MarineMax, who teaches a course called Women on the Water. And I called them up and I said, do you hire women captains to teach this class? And they were like, oh, no, we don't have any women captains. So I was like, well, what if you hired me to teach the class? We talked a little and all that. So I got involved as a vendor with them. And I started working with them, teaching this Women on the Water course. They also have Docking for Men, which I've done as well. And wound up getting connected with their store in Somers Point, New Jersey. And they started using me for boat orientations and private lessons for customers. And from there, I just kept growing my network and getting more involved with things. And other MarineMax stores would call me. And then I got, as I talk at marinas with people, you leave your business card and you hope they pass it on and all that good stuff. And so little by little, things started to blossom. And now, last year I spent, I think it was 172 days on the water, literally. Now, I was home a lot of that time, right? You go out with customers for a couple hours, you're home. But I did a lot of delivery work as well. And so I've been very fortunate to do this. I also left the healthcare world and became a university professor at a local college. And in their nursing program at the graduate level is all online.
Oh, great.
And so it gives me that opportunity to still do this work, but be able to connect with students online when I have, so usually mornings, nights, and if we're close to shore, all that stuff works out. So I've had this amazing opportunity to piece my life together a little differently and make it all work, which is great.
So what is doing deliveries like? For those listeners who don't know, deliveries can actually be very difficult. You're getting into an unfamiliar vessel. You've really got to know the systems extensively and be able to translate that knowledge very rapidly into a completely new scenario. So what is that like for those listening?
So I would describe it as hours of boredom offset by moments of terror. So you get onto a new boat, you've never seen it before, you've got to find battery switches, you've got to find the control panel, you've got to, be able to set up the systems, and some boats are pretty standard, and some boats, the newer boats today, azimuths, galleons, there aren't switches. It's all done electronically through touch screens. So getting on the boat, spending the first, 30 minutes to an hour just trying to get oriented on your own to those vessels and making sure everything works, obviously, making sure people didn't leave, seacocks off or didn't forget to put oil in the engine and all those basic things. And then taking off from there is really about pre-planning.
Mm-hmm.
I carry an iPad, I use Navionics, and whenever I get called for a job, because probably 90%, and it's getting less really, it's probably less than 90% now, but in the beginning it was almost 100%, I had never been to the places that people wanted me to take their boats. And so I would use Navionics in advance to really study the course.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions I had, I would reach out to my mentors, for a little bit of their experience and knowledge. Look up the boat, its fuel burn, bridge height, all kinds of things, in terms of specs for a boat. So all that work gets done up front, and then sometimes the job gets canceled, and you're like, okay, I just spent 3 hours doing a lot of work, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all part of that, getting ready to go. So a lot of prep work. Additionally, transportation has to be managed, and the work I do all of this for myself. I don't ask a customer to do this unless they want to. But do I take a train or rent a car or take an Uber or drive myself or hire somebody to drive me to get to a marina? Getting home, same thing. Sometimes it's a plane, sometimes it's a car rental. So the transportation piece, also understanding how far you can go every day. So depending on fuel burn, you've got to kind of plot out, where am I going to stop for the night? And one of the things I don't like to do, unless I have to and get caught in it, is run at night.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough things that can go wrong in the daytime. And so running at night is not something I do voluntarily.
Right.
There's just too many options for damaging a customer's boat, and that's the last thing you want to do. So yeah, it's kind of that, a lot of pre-planning, getting on the boat, getting yourself oriented, having people around you that you can call on the way if something is funky, or it doesn't look like what you've planned, and then just getting the job done safely and hopefully with no issues.
So when did you know in your lifetime that you wanted to be a captain, and did you ever feel like there was a barrier to entry because you were a woman, or did you feel like this was an inclusive industry and you would definitely encourage other women who are interested in entering the industry to do so?
So I first wanted to become a captain in my early 20s, but of course, you have family back then, and you got a full-time job, and I was trying to go to school, and I couldn't fit everything into my life, and so something had to give. So at that point, I let the captain thing go, because what was I going to do with it at that point anyway? I really didn't have a clue. And I'm kind of a believer in, everything in time in your life, if you're willing to have the patience for it to happen. I never let the dream go. And so when I got the captain's license this time, it was fairly amazing to me that right from the course, I was able to connect with people who then brought me along. In terms of barriers, I've not really had too many barriers. There may have been instances where people didn't hire me because I'm a woman, but I don't know that. Nobody ever said that to me, like we're not having a woman. I do know that there are times when I would love to run a job, and these are people I know, so I can say this, it's a good old boy fun thing that they do, and they don't want a woman hanging around. So that's fine, and I'm good with that. I think the most important thing is to prove yourself in the industry. So in the beginning, I did a lot of flying by the seat of my pants. I pretended I knew what I was, talking about and doing. And at some of those situations, I was like, oh, I hope this goes well. So I kind of was faking it till I made it. And now I'm no expert by any stretch. I mean, I don't know if you ever become an expert in the maritime industry, but I can dock a boat on under most circumstances, and of any size up to 85 feet, I guess, is the biggest boat I've run. I can do really good planning. I can be very safe on the water with somebody's vessel, unless there's some surprise that you can't plan on. But I haven't encountered many barriers. People today don't seem to mind that you're a woman, and in some cases I think I've won the jobs because I'm a woman. The guy that I'm running the boat up with from Florida hired me for that reason, that and my background. He had 2 other male captains lined up, and for less money. And he liked my resume and liked the fact that I was a woman. He's got a 16-year-old daughter who's was on the boat with us, and so perhaps I got the job for, some of those reasons. But no real barriers. No real barriers.
Good. So what's been your favorite delivery so far? Is there a favorite boat or a favorite route that you have? Loaded question.
Yeah, it's hard to think because as I expand the waters that I get to navigate and learn, that's always exciting to me. I guess one of my favorite trips was on a 77-foot azimuth. I ran that from Boston down to Baltimore, and then up to Brick, and then back to Baltimore. So I got a little time on that boat, and it was just so dialed in and mechanically worked so well and was so responsive. I really enjoyed that boat. Galleons are Polish boats, and not because of my ethnic background, but they're really well-made boats, and they're very simple to manage. So, that's fun. A favorite, really. I just ran up to Maine with a boat for a customer, and boy, that was a wonderful trip. I've not gotten that high on the East Coast, and it's beautiful up there. So.
Yeah.
Just having those experiences of doing something new, paying attention, seeing the different wildlife in the different areas. The marinas are different everywhere, even though there's similarities. All marinas, have slips and docks, obviously, and some with fuel pumps, but just the settings are beautiful. So,
right.
But I can't say I have a particular favorite.
So in terms of advancing your maritime career, are there moments that are sort of decisive factors in saying, okay, I'd like to go this direction with my career? Because I think a lot of people hit crossroads in their maritime career, and there's so many different ways they can go. How do you personally decide, okay, this is the direction I'd like to head?
Well, I guess the opportunity to run with Alpine last fall and learn a little bit about the commercial industry was somewhat of a turning point. It opened my eyes to the commercial side. It opened my eyes to the survey business. And so that's when I said, you know what, I'd like to get credentialed, because if I do have the opportunity, then I'll be ready. And if it never comes about, that's okay, because I'm going to learn a whole lot of stuff that I can use a lot of. And it's just going to make me more qualified, even if I continue to do what I'm doing today.
Right.
So that was definitely a turning point for me. Do I know if I'm going to work full-time in that industry? I can't tell you that right now. I really enjoy the recreational business, and I've gotten more comfortable with the unpredictability of it. Commercial work would be, a daily job.
Right.
But I would like to do it. If it happens, great. I'm hoping I'll be ready when a potential offer comes in. But if not, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and just get better at it.
So with that, you'd recommend to individuals in the maritime industry to advance their credentials, even necessarily if there isn't a job immediately lined up. I think what I'm sort of getting at is it's better for people to be prepared for that opportunity to come versus not being able to take the opportunity because they didn't go get the expanded credentials.
I would say absolutely. Having gone through a lot of education on my own, it's something nobody can take away from you, right? The more you know, the more prepared you're going to be, even for whatever it is that you do, whether you need those credentials or not. If you decide at some point that you want to change gears, and, opportunity knocks a lot of times. It's not because you're looking for it, but because somebody's looking for you and you happen to run into them. Mm-hmm. And so the more prepared you can be in the industry, I think the better your chances are of having a door open that maybe you didn't even consider.
Right.
So, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing with you guys.
There you go.
Opening doors.
So I have a very prominent person in my life who likes to call a captain's license your insurance. It's an opportunity waiting. For those who don't know, the maritime industry is one of the highest paying industries in the U.S. And so even if you don't have the opportunity, maybe you're like Captain Janet and temporarily you're in the health industry, but having that ticket in your back pocket is something that's invaluable. And so,
yeah, without a doubt. My dad said to me a long time ago, whatever you do in life, try to make sure it's a licensed job.
Right.
Because a license is a ticket to a profession. It's a ticket to a good career. And it's going to put food on your table every day.
Yep.
If you don't have that license, then you're going to be in a bucket with a million fish, right? So getting the license was always important, and therefore I went for a nursing license first, and then this captain's license next. I was a 50-ton captain when I first started because I didn't have experience on larger boats. So I worked really hard in the first couple of years to get on larger boats and put in my time, and now I'm a 100-ton captain. And I think if I can, as I continue to go in the industry, I'm hoping to get up to the 200-ton level. I don't know if there would be any reason for me to go higher than that, but again, it would just be an opportunity to be able to run the larger vessels, and of course, with all the endorsements I'm collecting, I'll be prepared in that way as well.
Right. So I think with COVID, there's a lot of people in general, no matter what they're doing in their lives, have a lot of hesitation, and it's been a big pause for everyone.
Yeah.
But truly, the maritime industry itself is predicted to double in size over the next couple decades, which is, if you consider that, that's pretty incredible because it's already a massive industry. What do you say to people who are potentially hesitating to pursue this industry due to what's going on? Do you have some words of encouragement to say, get out there, get after it, and so forth?
I would say that you have to know where your comfort zone is, but don't let your comfort zone give you analysis paralysis kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's great opportunity now to study online and keep going with education in that regard. If you're not an online person, then you're going to have to wait because classrooms will open eventually, but not immediately. But if you're going to want to do anything in your life, you're going to have to get after it. And so setbacks will always be a part of our lives. We're human beings. We're going to have setbacks, some of us more than others. You just have to kind of rise to the occasion, pull up your bootstraps, and keep marching forward. In the face of adversity, and even in the maritime industry, one of my scariest jobs, I was running a boat by myself, which I don't do too often unless I absolutely have to, but this was an early, silly decision. I looked at all of the data from the weather, all of the sea state information. I knew how far, this is a customer's boat I've been running for a couple of years. Martha's Vineyard, I was going to meet another captain down in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Full day of running, good boat. I thought, and the sea state was predicted to be less than 1 foot in the Atlantic Ocean, so I made a beeline out of Martha's. I knew I had to stop in Shinnecock to fuel up, but then, boom, I was headed to Atlantic City. An hour after I left Shinnecock, all heck broke loose. The weather system changed. I'm now in like 5 and 6 footers in this boat. I'm by myself. I'm 4.5 hours away from, the nearest port. I'm 35 miles offshore. I'm petrified. I'm wearing a Type 1 life vest, standing, with my feet 6 feet apart or as far as I could get them. At any rate, I say this because I think that particular run taught me that when you're in a boat, you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. You need to just keep going. And whether those were bad decisions or not, whether it was unpredictable and unfair, oh well. So when you ask about moving forward through something like COVID, when you're land-based, you have options to stay inside and wait for it to end, or you can just keep going. And that day on the boat, I didn't have an option. I had to get that boat somewhere. I wound up stopping in Brick, by the way. I got off in the Manasquan Inlet. I ended the trip early.
Smart.
But, totally not ready for that. No indication that was going to happen. So I think just like in life, you just kind of have to keep getting up and, putting your pants on every day and moving.
Right. In our second episode of Maritime Matters, we talk about adapting to ambiguity or adaptability. And I think the maritime industry, above pretty much almost all industries, forces you to be able to adapt. Have most of your lessons learned on the water been from those types of scenarios where you're kind of caught in a scenario that is unfamiliar and is perhaps... we won't say dangerous, but it kind of makes your hair stand a little bit. What's that like, and where do those learning experiences come from?
Yeah, I've had, I think that is the maritime industry. Only so much of it can be predicted, from, environment to navigation, your buoys and markers, to shoaling, to time on the water. You may plan a day and then have to slow down for one reason or another. An engine, you have to shut it down because it's overheating. Now you've only got one engine. Thankfully you had 2 to begin. It's all of those things happen. Longer days than you had planned, and you're getting tired at the end of the day. Silly things like going to the bathroom.
Right.
Sometimes on smaller boats, you got to adapt to some circumstances that you wouldn't normally if you were home. So, so there's lots of adapting to do when running a boat. And I've had many of those experiences. Seasickness. Yeah, as much as I've been on a boat, every once in a while, I'll get into something that makes me seasick. Now, if you've been seasick, you know that you do not want to be anywhere. You want to be just home in your own bed.
Yeah.
You can't go below. You've got to pay attention. You've got to stay as part of the crew, or drive on your own if you're the only one on the vessel. So you've got to fight through all of those things from that perspective. The other things are, I've met some folks from other countries that work on the commercial side that, it's just fascinating. They bring a whole different flavor to the social dynamic of being on, a larger ship, let's say, with people who come from Trinidad or come from Mexico or come from, Denmark. So there's an adjustment there. And how do you deal with people from other cultures that may not understand jokes the same way, or may not have the same terminology you do, or... Right, so there's another adjustment. So it's all, I find it so much fun. Sometimes not, but in the end, it makes for a good story. But yeah, there's a lot of adapting to do. I find over the last few years. Things
Right.
that you can't plan, really.
Right.
Plan for the unexpected. That's how you plan.
Now, would you say that most instances in terms of getting caught in those situations came from as a result of lack of experience, as maybe a human judgment error or human error? I find a lot of the times, even with things not operating well in the system of the vessel, we look back at perhaps 3 years ago, person X performed service on that item, and perhaps they didn't put it back exactly correctly. And it took 3 years, but all of a sudden you've got a mechanical failure. So I think a lot of those experiences perhaps come from human error, and it takes those experiences to overcome and understand and grow as a person in terms of your knowledge.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. The recreational industry is very busy right now. People have purchased boats through the winter. They continue to purchase boats because they see it as an escape from their home, to get out on the water. This gentleman I was just running up from Marco Island, the heat exchanger blew on the starboard engine, and we had water all over downstairs.
Right.
And there were some other issues as well. So part of it, I think, is that the recreational industry in particular is being pushed to produce. And so it's harder and harder to produce a product with the level of attention and quality that's necessary. Not because people want to make mistakes. I think it's just, we got to get the next one out and the next one out and the next one out. And so, people may just not have the time to put in the level of quality that they're capable of. The other thing is we're in a society now where we're constantly being interrupted. Right? We keep our cell phones. Years ago, you didn't have a cell phone. If you weren't in an office or in a building, you couldn't get a call from anybody. Somebody'd have to come find you, right? Today, we're at everybody's beck and call. And so you could be in the middle of something and you get a call. Now you got to stop what you're doing. And depending on how long that call goes or what it was about, now you're thinking in another direction while you're still trying to do the first job. And so getting your head back in the game, where did I leave off? How many turns of this particular screw did I do? Is it tight enough? Is it not tight enough? Did I put the gasket in there just right? All of those things become more challenging, I think, for the production end and from the distraction end.
Right. So really, as a delivery captain, you've got to have a lot of skills. That comes to navigation, it comes to boat handling, it comes to being a marine engineer. Has it been a steep learning curve for you over the past 6 years, or over the course of your lifetime? Have you sort of found that you can look back to experiences and you have sort of this knowledge back there that you're able to pull from due to life experience?
I think I was fortunate to have this mentor, right? And
Right.
so I was able to ask him a lot of questions, and I probably was the most annoying person in the beginning. But I learned the navigation pretty quickly. I mean, when you're out there, you're doing it. Learning the systems has been a little more of a curve for me because I didn't grow up around boats. I didn't grow up in a factory that I saw boats being built. I never took a mechanics course. So a lot of what I know today is because I've had to learn it on the fly.
Right.
Of all of my weaknesses, I would say that the mechanical end is probably my largest weakness. I just haven't had enough of those experiences and didn't take a formal class to really understand enough about that. So anytime I put myself out to a customer, I let them know I have some basic skills here, but I am not going to be able to put your heat exchanger back on if it falls off.
Yep,
That
yep.
is not in my toolbox. So, and most people have been okay with that, you know. I haven't had anybody say, well, you're not. I have been told, the more you know, the better, the more comfortable people are going to be with you, because there is a level of expectation that you have some mechanical skills.
Right.
Fix a toilet that the vacuum is running and running and running, and why is that? And tracing that system back and realizing that the little ball in the toilet didn't close right. Now you
Right.
got to adjust that, and right. But those are things that you kind of learn when you encounter them, and you call somebody up who maybe has more information than your knowledge base. So yeah, that would be probably the thing that I have the most challenge around and need, and always on the lookout. When the mechanics come on board, I'm like right behind them, trying to learn as much as I can as they're going through their checklist or whatever they do. So
Right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. Again, we appreciate you being our student above all things, and it's always exciting to chat with women in maritime. So to hear your story has been a lot of fun.
well, thank you for having me, and keep up the great work that you're doing. I'm looking forward to taking a few more courses with you guys and actually getting to the school. I see your school because I go into New Bedford Harbor there. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and I think your school has what color is the roof? Is like a blue?
Yeah, so the main building is it's a former church,
It's got a
that,
steeple. Yeah.
and it's got a nice brand new blue metal roof. The roof was in need of repair last year, so that went on, and you can kind of see it from further away now, which is fun.
Yeah, so I will be looking forward to coming up and spending some time actually on your campus.
Well, we're excited to have you. So,
All right. Well, thanks
all
for
right.
everything, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, be safe on the rest of your journey.
All right. Thanks, Morgan. Take care.